Welcome to the Transformative Pathways Podcast with your host, Jason Doby. Join Jason as he explores the many ways to unlock personal growth, mindfulness, and spiritual transformation. So now, please welcome the host of Transformative Pathways, Jason Doby.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jason Doby, founder of Transformative Pathways Life Coaching. Thank you so much for joining us today. So before we dive in, I just want to let you know about something new I just released. It's called the 5-Minute Stress Test, and it launched yesterday. It's a quick self-assessment that helps you check in and get real about how stress is showing up in your life, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Based on your answers, you'll get a personalized breakdown of where you're at, plus a few support tools and a simple action plan to help you feel more clear, calm, and in control. It only takes 5 minutes, it's free, and it's a powerful way to reconnect with yourself and take the first step toward feeling grounded again. If you've been feeling tense, reactive, or a little off, go check it out. You can find the link in the show notes. All right, now let's get into today's episode. The topic for today is leading with intention, how mindfulness, food, and connection shape who we are. With our guest, Peter Pietruniak, who is joining us today from Beamsville, Ontario. Peter is the executive chef at Rosewood Winery in Beamsville, Ontario. His journey to food wasn't a straight path. He originally studied accounting and finance before following a deeper calling towards the kitchen. Along the way, Peter faced personal challenges, including addiction, ego-driven ambition, and burnout. But through it all, he found his way back to what matters most: family, mindfulness, and serving others with heart. After working in some of the world's most respected kitchens, from Lynn Crawford's Ruby Watch Co. to Dinner by Heston Blumenthal in London, Peter now leads with focus and sustainability, team growth, and honest, grounded nourishment. At Rosewood, he creates a space that celebrates local ingredients, regenerative agriculture, and the kind of food that brings people together. More than just a chef, Peter is also a father, a leader, and someone who's walking the long road of growth to rediscover what it really means to show up with purpose. Peter, welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Chef. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule for us today. Really appreciate it. To start things off, man, let's start at the beginning. Your journey hasn't really been a straight line. What was it that pulled you away from finance and into the kitchen?
When I was in high school, my mother got into an accident, so she wasn't able to do much around the house. And she was she had 6 standard recipes type thing. I cooked it for 5 days of class. I go home, pop in the stove so I can finish eating before I got to go on to my whatever extracurricular activities I had to do. But then when I started cooking to replace her role, because my dad still was working at the time, I started experimenting more. So that was the time when like Emerald was on TV, Jimmy Oliver was doing his Cooking from the Garden show. It was before Food Network became two celebrity chef. It was like real chefs still on there. So I kind of got inspired and started thinking around, and I saw when I would cook for my family, like how happy I was making them and how I felt respected and felt a part of the celebration. And I guess that kind of fit for me because I was always kind of like that lonely kid at school or didn't know how to fit in. So I would do the wrong things to try to fit in instead of doing something more substantial or fulfilling long term. But I was just a kid, so I couldn't really. Mindfulness wasn't a topic back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, when I was a kid, my mother had an accident at work too, and she was out for a long time, but I don't remember ever doing much of the cooking. It was more of like doing the housework and taking care of everything. How old were you when your mother had her accident?
I was probably last year of high school, so that would be like
Okay.
17. So I'm a after OAC kid.
Okay, yeah. I think I was a bit
Yeah.
younger when my mother had hers. I was like 7 or 8 or something like that.
Yeah, we always
And
used to like eat and enjoy food, and we always had good big family gatherings. And I guess I kind of kept that going, and enjoyed it and something I try to keep hold of now. And I'm very lucky in a position where I can have dinner every night with my family, and that's very rare as a chef, specifically.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
incredible. And tell me about your career in finance.
That was you're really good at math, you should do something in math. But I also kind of, looking back after all the growth I've done, is like math is an easy subject to do when you're a loner because you don't need someone else to you don't need to work with someone else. You just need to fill in reports and do accounting and stuff like that. So I kind of fell into that because my teachers gave me compliments. I loved it, and my dad was an accountant, so I felt like I was fulfilling some sort of destiny for them as well. And wanted that good old stable job that, um, being a first generation Canadian, with my parents both being uh, adopted from Poland, leaving communism back then. So like they just wanted what was best for me, and that's what was back then the best idea was get an office job and you'll be okay, work 9 to 5 and
Mhm.
retire one day and you'll be okay. So that's what it was. Um, However, I just didn't really find a calling for it, I guess. It was I would find myself always on watching YouTube videos for like Anthony Bourdain back then,
Mhm.
and other chefs like that. And I kind of said, screw it, I'm gonna go after it. That was after I had my troubles with addiction back then, and my escaping the reality, and I just didn't have the confidence then to say it and go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you decided to get into cooking?
Probably 23. I graduated 21, so 24, 25. I think I wanted to do it earlier. It's just I got a lot of flack from people and the expectations that were put on me from different outside people uh, kind of made me not do it, which I realized was my own doing. I was always looking for someone else to approve of me instead of approving of myself back then. But I was a kid, so.
I
Uh,
can totally relate to that. Totally relate to that. And that's another thing we have in common. I used to be really good at math too, like in grade 7, grade 8. I remember I won like a math competition in Ontario. I used to get A plus pluses in math. I would like mark my class's homework. In grade 9, I was a math tutor, and then but that's when I started smoking pot. And then in grade 10, I just barely I stopped going to school basically, and then
yeah,
I didn't take any math from there. But being a chef, you need to use a lot of math, so it's
yeah, you
good to
do. Yeah, it's the one part I know I have to do. It's that work I avoid doing, but I
yeah.
know once I get it all done, like it makes it easier type thing. So
Yeah, it definitely helps.
yeah,
It definitely helps. And I remember that cooking show, Emeril Lagasse. That was a cool one. I forgot about that. He was the one that used to
yeah,
always say, "Bam, eh, bam."
yeah. That was a good one. And then Jamie Oliver's at home when he had his own garden and he had his little like gardener friend doing all the stuff. That was a
Yeah,
great little flex that I like watching.
and that was amazing. And when you decided to get into cooking, like how was that with your family? Were they supportive at first, or were they a little bit like, "What is this guy doing, leaving like this safe job to go be a
Yeah,
chef?"
my my grandparents were. I had four sets technically because my parents were adopted. They were related, but a different way. My grandmother would be like, "I thought that was a woman's job." My my parents didn't like it because they knew I'd be working different hours and it would be hard to support a
Right.
family. And the life that they wanted for me, being a chef, wasn't probably part of that vision. So it
Yeah.
was harder for it. And then once I started to actually um, prove myself and continue to work and get the positions and work at the restaurants I worked at and uh, get to where I am now, they actually understand why I was doing it. So it was tough at the beginning. It was probably 50% fueled it because it's kind of like a rebellion stage for me,
Mhm.
which was great because I had something to prove, so I kept going at it and I didn't give up because working in a kitchen is really difficult, especially before the shift and uh, better working conditions and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
been, yeah,
It is very difficult. My journey was a lot different. I kind of just got into cooking. It wasn't something I ever wanted to do. I had a guy that one of my friends was a dishwasher at a restaurant, and he called me one day and said, "Hey, do you want my job? He just got a job in construction." He said, "You can start today." And I said, "Sure." So I was like 15 years old, and I started washing
Yeah.
dishes, and I worked my way up, and then from that place, my boss recommended I go work with this other person. Then I ended up at the Elora Mill, and then I ended up doing an apprenticeship. So it was never something that I really wanted to do. I just kind of fell into it, and
Yeah.
I was good at it, and I liked the rush of it. It was kind of like I was really into sports, so it was kind of like sports is like you're on a team and you're getting ready for the big game, and the game would be like service time, and it's crazy, but I guess my journey's a little bit opposite than yours. And then I got out of it a couple of years later, a couple of years ago, just because I wasn't really feeling the love. And I just decided, if my heart's not in this anymore, why am I doing this? And why am I working these crazy hours to do something I don't love? And then that's
Yeah,
when
that's very true.
and I felt that for 15 years. And then I just finally said, I used to tell myself reasons why I couldn't do something different. I'm too old, or I'm making too much money now. But then one day I just decided, like, I'm in control of my life and I can do whatever I want. So
Yeah.
so here I am, man. You said, being a chef is a high pressure role, and it does take a lot of your time. How do you balance the family life and the chef life?
It was really, really tough at first. Um, when we moved to like Niagara region, that was probably just pre-pandemic. So we got in the market at a good time. That was great. But I was lucky enough that I worked for Andrew Peller Limited. So I worked for Frank Dodd at Trios Winery. It's a little bit bigger corporation. And then, to be honest, my wife and I always joke that the pandemic was kind of a blessing because
Mm.
I got to be home and my daughter was just born. So I got like a second paternal leave, and um, luckily I got to keep my job in a way and like worked in the warehouse there, and then we started cooking takeout food programs there. But we realized like, wow, there's way more importance than getting status of being a chef and everything like that. And I think uh, co- luckily there was a lot of other stresses that kind of pushed me to do things. But I think the biggest gain from pandemic for us was we don't need a lot to actually be happy. We just needed each other, like for my family and stuff like that. So every decision since then has been trying to make that happen, with the first root of like kind of how it's like hierarchy of needs. Like my need is like home first, get that grounded, and if I can have that good foundation, um, I can step up and go on to the next level, and then keep building next foundation and the next level and next level. But then eventually, like not growing myself too hard and getting myself too ahead of my foundation. Really, that's what made my life.
Yeah, that's incredible. And another thing we have in common, I also worked with Chef Frank Dodd for many years, for 6 years. I worked with him at Langdon Hall, and he's the reason why I moved down to Niagara. And then I met my
Yeah,
wife down here working at Hillebrand Winery as well with the same company. Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, and also when the pandemic hit too, my kids were really young. I think my oldest daughter was in kindergarten, and we had little twins at home. So we had three little babies at home. But it was so nice, like from a chef's perspective, it was so nice just to be able to be home and
yeah,
like be off on weekends. As crazy as it was like, wow, the only way I can get time off is when like the whole world shut down here. And I was lucky enough. I was still working full time. I was at the golf course at that time, but I had we did a takeout program, but they kept me employed 5 days a week. So I worked pretty much straight days with weekends off and holidays
no,
off.
that's great.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, it was definitely a good time to kind of reflect on life and what's important. I think a lot of
Yeah,
people realize that family is more important than work at that time. Um, One thing you mentioned that really stuck with me was the idea of shortening the time between awareness and action. Um, I think you wrote that in your intake form. Could you unpack that a little bit for us?
yeah. I've been trying to figure out everything. Not everything. I can't figure out everything. Um, just every day, trying to be more aware of where my actions might come from. I have a belief, and I've heard a lot of people say this through watching other podcasts and just reading other books. Um, like our beliefs dictate our thoughts, and then our thoughts dictate our actions. But you can kind of stop that cycle and just be aware of like, wait, this belief is not true. You don't need to even think about it. You know what the right action is. Don't even think about it and just commit and do it because you know what's right. And there's a lot of beliefs that have been ingrained, I think, in everyone that kind of shift their thoughts and they make them overthink, and then they become hesitant on actions, and then that cycle just continues to. You kind of almost reinforce those beliefs, which aren't really true. So I've been trying to shorten that gap of being like aware and then automatically doing the action that I've been insecure about, so that I can try to not have to think about it anymore, and I know I've overcome it. Because if I found I always have a tendency to overthink things in the past, and then that event would actually come up, and I would like freeze because my brain's like, wait, you already did this. You've thought about this so many times. I don't know the difference about whether you actually did it or not. You were just thinking about it. But when the actual physical moment comes in, then it's like freeze. But I've been trying to completely reduce that time of being aware of when I say something stupid or do something that I'm not proud of, where it came from, what insecurity I felt that made me do that, and just adjust that point of view of knowing and understanding and being aware first of everything that kind of leads me to where I could make a bad action, but I choose to make the other one.
Yeah, that's incredible. And like the one thing I teach my clients too in my 12-week coaching program, like the first thing we focus on is mindfulness and awareness, because without the mindfulness and awareness, you can't really do the limiting beliefs work or any of that stuff. Because first you have to be aware of your thoughts and your feelings, and like what you said was perfect. Like, where is that coming from? What, why do I have that? It could be an inner child thing. So yeah, I've done a lot of work around that myself too. And I think in Buddhism they call it the middle way, and I like to explain to my clients like this. Even when it comes to reacting to things, like the more you practice mindfulness and meditation, then the part where something happens and then you automatically react, that middle way in between kind of grows, and then you get a little bit of time. This is a little bit different than what you were speaking about, but then you get a little bit of extra time to decide how you want to react to something. So I find, like, for myself, that middle path is kind of opening up, so I don't automatically react to things anymore. I have that split second to think, okay, how do I want to react to this situation? You just don't automatically react and then say, oh, I wish I never said that. So I think that mindfulness practice.
I kind of agree with what you're saying, and like I think some people forget that not taking an action can be an action. So like instead of like reaching for a bag of chips because you're stressed, being aware of that moment, the right action might be just to be like, wait, be aware of why you're doing this, and then just don't do it. And I think the not doing it makes that breadth of that middle way kind of wider for you, because then you realize you have that confidence in yourself, instead of confidence that that external high is going to give you a way out for feeling for a day, or instead of like actually doing it yourself, or just sitting with it and being okay with it.
Exactly, yeah, and you take back the control, and sitting with it is important too. Like, if you're feeling something, sitting with it. Why am I feeling this way?
Action's probably not like the best word, because of it seems like you have to do something, but sometimes like doing nothing is probably the better action. And I struggle with doing nothing. My wife can attest to that. I can't just sit and be, but I've been really practicing on that, especially with like pressures from like work or life or family and everything like that, to be able to just like not look at my phone and check for work updates, or just to be present, I think is the biggest thing I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah, I struggle with that as well, just being so busy with everything I have going on, and with my full-time job and my business and the podcast and everything, it's a lot, and I get so sucked into it because every time I try to sit down and relax, I think, well, I could be doing this, but then I just need to remind myself that I need to have that balance. And so
I find sometimes that's kind of also a hidden addiction in our culture and society, that you can't sit and you just say, well, I'll just work, and then you don't. Oh, work's not a addiction. I'm just building another business, or I'm trying to get rich again, or I'm trying to prove myself again to something else when you don't need to.
Yeah,
It's
it
kind of
definitely is an addiction.
yeah,
It definitely is. I agree with that 100%. So I'm going to take a day off this Sunday. My wife's off, and I'm going to take the day off and not work at all because I do a lot of work on the weekends. And
mm,
I haven't had a day off in, I don't know, probably 4 months or something. And it's kind of wearing on my family a little bit. So I think I need to spend some time with my wife and with my kids. So we're going to take a day together. So
yeah,
I
that's
think
nice.
really going to be needed. I kind of gave myself a bit of a talking to today. Like, if I don't work for one day, it's going to be fine. I can do it another
Yeah,
day.
nothing's gonna happen. Yeah, it's
It
not really that.
definitely is a bit of an addiction too. My addiction to drugs and alcohol has turned into a work addiction a little bit, I think.
Yeah,
But
that's more when I've been planning the menu for the summer, and I keep trying to think of. Before a few months ago, I was thinking of, like, ways to more things to create, and then I'm just like, why? Like, I'm just creating more work for myself that I don't want to do, and I'm just forcing myself so that I can do it, so I have something new to do instead of just sitting with it and being like, no, we have a pretty good program. Like, maybe improve it slightly, find better ways to teach it to our new staff, find better ways to set up the systems better, so that when we execute it together, it's literally the same thing, creating a foundation of, like, okay, we have this foundation, then we can grow on to the next thing, instead of just forcing new things always to happen, and just setting with it and letting it be and enjoying it, because we
yeah,
all work
exactly.
hard at what we do, and when you look back at, like, what you've achieved over a year, 2 years, like, it's incredible, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't think I'd be here or in this situation or anything like that. So
Yeah,
it's refreshing, but it's a challenge, because there's pressures from everyone is dealing with the same stuff.
yeah.
So the people giving you a lot of work to do are probably facing the same situation that when you're trying to avoid the work. But
And all the pressure we put on ourselves too, because we think we need to do more and do more and do more. And like you said, it's amazing when you look back and look at how far you've come over the last year or two, because sometimes we don't notice that. We don't notice how far we've come. That's
yeah,
uh
I
that's
find my best growth has been when I do less, when I actually give myself time to be like, I'm just gonna sit and read a book, and then I'll come up with the better, more creative ideas
mhm.
and answers to things. Whereas if I'm just continually giving myself tasks over and over and over again, I feel like I'm accomplishing anything, but I'm not actually accomplishing anything towards fulfilling myself and the bigger picture and goals I have in line.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's one thing that a lot of all my mentors say, a lot of the mentors I've worked with, they say that, doing nothing is where you get your ideas from. My
Yeah,
one mentor calls it the garden rake. He goes out into his garden and just starts raking or just standing in his garden, and that's where the ideas flow in when you're doing
yeah.
nothing. So I need to practice that more often. And I'm curious, Peter, what does like a mindfulness practice look like to you? Do you have a daily practice that you do or anything?
Um, I don't think I have like a routine per se. Every morning I get my dog and go for a walk. I maybe do a little exercise depending on how I'm feeling. If my muscles feel sore, that's my body telling me not to push it. Yeah, I think it's more like a continual thing. Um, I try to catch myself overthinking, and then I'll just breathe. I'll do like a short inhale and big exhale, and go- and just stop. And it's more like the small things that I'm trying to work on, instead of like setting up an hour to meditate.
Hmm.
I try to make every moment of, like, wait a minute, why am I reaching for these maple covered almonds? I know I shouldn't be having them. I know I'm not hungry. What is it that I'm doing? And then I'll do that. I think the biggest thing, I think, for my family actually has been, my wife's been home because she got a concussion and hasn't been able to work. But when we have our day nights, we used to be both industry. Our day nights used to be go out, hit the Michelin star restaurant wherever we were working, whether it was Australia or London, and stay up till 2, enjoying wine because my wife's a sommelier. And but then now it's like we'll have a bottle of wine and sit by the fire and just talk, and it's nice and I know she wants this the best for me and I want the best for her. Sometimes that results in us having to agree to disagree on some things,
Hmm.
but we always find a different answer. And I think just the communication of being open and having someone you can trust, uh, that won't fully judge you, and lets you be free and express yourself without the repercussions type thing is probably the best practice I can have. Is that 1 hour, like that 3 hours on a Friday night, when our daughter's over at grandpa's or Babcha Jaju's, watching a movie. That's like probably the best practice. This really hones me back in, because if you ever met my wife, she will tell you as it is without filter. So um, I'm very proud of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and I like how you said like a mindfulness practice doesn't have to be sitting and doing meditation. Like for me myself, I've been trying to just practice it all throughout the day. Like for me, it's like a 24/7 job trying to be aware of my thoughts and my feelings and noticing when I'm not being mindful and and it's just like a full-time job all day long. And I think of it like being awake in a dream. Like instead of being in a dream state all day, I try to be awake and mindful of what I'm doing. And it's a pretty cool way to live, but it does take a lot of practice.
It does, yeah. It's the pressures from outside. Not everyone knows this. So the people you deal with on a daily basis have their own insecurities that they may not have dealt with, may not even be aware of, be believing something that dictates their thoughts and actions differently than yours. And you kind of still have to stay that broad middle thing. You can't go down to them, because then you're just feeling you need their approval for yourself. Whereas if they don't approve of you, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's hard.
It is
It's
hard,
hard.
yeah.
Yeah. But I think I don't know, like I just, common example, like being a chef, it's usually prep lists are common life. Full pages of like prep work that we got to do. I've been really trying to focus on getting my team to just focus on the right work when we need to do it. And then when we have a list of, if you have time, this is what we can tackle. And then scheduling the work too, instead of it all being like, I've just been able to design a menu where we can prep, say like a pate or something, and it will last the week because of the way we prep it and the way you store it, because you can cover it that or whatever. And I've been designing the menu that way so that we can have time to focus on the thing and make it really good, and just make sure people enjoy it. And then when we have the time, we open up for something new and something exciting, and that's what kind of brings up fulfillment. Always trying to do something new, but always maintaining your foundation, I think, is kind of a tough thing to maintain.
Oh, that's great. It's amazing because there's so many layers to things, and I notice at times where I'll be trying to be mindful throughout the day, and I'll notice, so many things can throw me off throughout the day, and then you can dig deeper into that too when things go wrong at work or at home or whatever. It's amazing because there's always a time to practice. You can always practice it.
Yeah,
Always. That's what I
home
love about it
home
most.
is a tough thing. Not like per se, but like I think, especially when you have kids, you feel like their affection is them telling you you're doing a good job. But I don't know, like with my wife having no filter and saying it as it is, I'm building an independent daughter, so I'm gonna get some flack, and she's gonna call me out on stuff, which is great for a 5-year-old to do that to me. Um, Not in all the time, but I know there's moments where it's not great. Um, but it's also like, if I'm looking for an easy escape with her, I'm realizing maybe it's my insecurity that's fueling it instead of hers, because she's 5. She doesn't really have anything. The insecurities she's gonna have are gonna be the same insecurities I have, because she'll be seeing me living with them instead of her. She's kind of innocent when she was born, so
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Everything that they pick up is all going to be learned from their parents and everyone around them. It's amazing, and I think of like I have 3 daughters, and they're still quite young. 7. I have 2 7-year-olds, and my oldest is 8, turning 9 this year. And it's just the amount of growth that I've experienced through having kids. It's just incredible. Like if I never if they were never in my life, I would never be where I am today, because they made me look at parts of myself that I didn't even know
Yeah.
existed. It's incredible, for
Yeah.
anyone. I think having kids is like the number one thing for your personal growth.
Yeah. I think it's you're literally forcing yourself to think of someone else. Um, and it's your blood. It's easier to do that, I guess, when it's that type of relation. And I think it's I guess, a natural thing for you to take after your tribe and look after them.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, man. All right, Peter. Next, I want to talk about leadership. So you've had a lot of leadership roles in kitchens around the world, but it sounds like your definition of leadership has evolved a lot. Like, what does leadership, like, what does it mean to you to lead well in your view?
I'm still trying to figure that out. But for me, it's patience. It's probably a bigger thing, and accepting that not everyone. I mean, for me, it was always I expected everyone all my staff to think they know everything I know and they know what's going on in my head. And I feel a lot of chefs are actually like that, where they have all these ideas in their head and they change the menu plating in their head, but they
Mhm.
never told anyone. And they're like, "Why are you plating it this way?" And you're like, "Whoa." Okay. But it's more of like a patience and accepting and letting things go. And I know that's hard as a chef because we are feeding people, and you get 6 tables of bad reviews. It's tough, but I think that comes down to you being able to say, I only have these amount of resources. I can only make this type of food. I know this food very well. Let's implement the system so that we can do it properly, and I can teach anyone with patience how to do it and give them the right steps and the right environment to learn. I think that's the biggest thing. And a reason to learn is harder to, I think, um, instill that into people. Like that need for wanting to grow is hard for a lot of chefs, I think, to try to get that going into some people.
Mhm.
That's just been my experience. I've tried to be more steady. I've been reading a lot of, Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, and the Tao Te Ching as well. It's very much um, changed how I thought of leading, where you're not really leading by force, you're leading by allowing things to happen, and then with care, showing them that there is another way to do it, but also accepting that if they cut an onion a little bit different than you, it's not really a big deal. Or if they put a beet facing the wrong way, it's not really a big deal. It's literally, I used to have a chef at when I worked at dinner in London. It was, I would always say, it's not brain surgery. You're not going to kill anyone by putting an artichoke facing the wrong way. It's okay, and it is just food. And yeah, that's been my kind of leadership philosophy. And I try to create a kitchen where it's warm and loving and caring because I feel you could tell that in the food. I think there's something with energy, universal energy that just kind of flows into that, and you can tell just what like you can. I feel you can tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I think we're very similar in that way too. I was never a fan. Like you, I worked for chefs that used to yell and scream and lead by fear. And I was never a fan of that. And I always said I was never going to be that type of chef. And I think, I think the day, I like what you said there, like the days where I realized that, it doesn't matter if you cut the onion this way or that way. Cause I remember I had a sous chef and he used to cut onions the wrong way, but like it's just getting cooked in a soup and it didn't matter. So I had to once I learned to let a lot of those things go, and it was when I worked at the golf course too, because it wasn't as like high end as I was used to, and a lot of my staff didn't have the skills that I was used to working with. So I had to really
yeah,
learn to let a lot of things go, and just like at the end of the day, we're just making food, and you just have
yeah,
to let them do it. Like it doesn't matter if they put it this way or this way. Like it doesn't matter. So I learned a
yeah.
lot
I kind of find like being a leader is kind of you gotta come down to their level, but not in terms of like your skill, but in terms of their understanding, and then view it from there, and then be like, how did I learn how to do these skills? And like put yourself in their shoes, not like start like if there's a certain way to do things, like start sacrificing the quality. No, you just coming down to the level and showing them why it's better to cut an onion this way, why it's better for this to happen. And the more knowledge you have, the more you'll be able to properly dictate it to them, and they'll be like, oh, that makes sense actually, and like the way you explain it, it makes sense. And then it's just repetition. You don't need to do it fast. I've built the menu around so that service is fast, but the prep is slow, which is,
Yeah.
I think, very important, because then it allows us to really focus on what needs to be done and getting it right and getting it tasting really well. And that's why we choose to source our food from farmers that think slower, and instead of intensive agriculture and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that. I remember I had a guy working with me one day, and he said something to me that changed my life, the way I look at things. Because I always expected everyone, like you said, to think the way I think and to do things the way I do. And I used to always get really frustrated at people. And I remember he said to me, he's like, Chef, you got to stop expecting people to think the way you think and do things exactly the way you do, because they're not you and they
Yeah,
don't think like you. And that was like a huge like, because as chefs, we're always trying to, we want everyone to do everything exactly the same way we do it, in a way they need to, but just like the little things. And then once I accepted that, it took a lot of stress off me, and just accept that everyone's a little bit different, and I'm the only me, and I can't expect everyone to think exactly like me, because they're
yeah,
not going.
we're all a little different, but we're the same. We're the same basically. I forgot where I read that. I think that was encouraged to be disliked, where we're all the same, but we just have different upbringings and different paths, and that led us to be maybe with a different set of skill sets. And it's, my drive to prove my parents wrong that I could be a chef, like gave me the skills I have to be a chef. But some people I hire don't have that, don't have that insecurity. They're just happy with their life, and it's harder to. And I have to realize, maybe I'm being too pretentious with my food. Maybe I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. Maybe I'm doing it for my vanity and glory, and getting like recognition and rewards. Whereas at the end of the day, it is just food. We're supposed to feed people and nourish people, not you know be dominant over them with our skill set and make them think. you know, they didn't do that sitting around the fire like millennia ago. They're like, oh, look at my tweezers. They're like, no, it's like we are all eating the same shit from the same pots, from the same bowl, and from the same animal we hunted. So, this is what it is, and we didn't import anything from anywhere.
Yeah.
And you were all grateful for it because you understood the work that went involved into it. So
Yeah,
it
exactly.
was different. Now everything's become so easy and accessible for us. It's changed the perception of what everything I kind of is.
All right, I love that. And I love how you talk about nourishment, um, with regards to connection and belonging. Um, can you talk a little bit how food creates space for people to feel safe and seen, and
Yeah.
what that means to you?
Um, I think there's a balance that we need to kind of strike. I'm not preaching or anything. I'm just saying I think there's a understanding and appreciation for food, um, that it can bring people together. And ideally, in a situation when you're eating food, like like from a doctor standpoint, not that I'm a doctor, but from what I've heard, is if you're stressed while you're eating, your body won't be able to process your food because you're in a fight or flight stage versus a digest and rest stage. So creating an environment with food is very. I think that's probably the best way to do it. That's why hospitality is. I love hospitality is because we try our best to create an environment where you can come in, relax, feel good, and the food's important, but it's not important. It's just another part of the thing. Like it's not just the table, it's what's on the table, who's around the table, how you're all feeling around the table. Um, like it doesn't matter if you're drinking wine or you're drinking non-alcoholic. It's how you feel while you're doing it. I think that's what's more important. I think we've become very one item focused. Like, no, wine is bad. You can't have it at all. It's, well, look at all of Europe. They all don't have all these diseases that we like, North Americans have, and they have wine every day, and that's because they are there together and when they rest, they rest. They sit down, they eat, they talk, they discuss things. It's a different lifestyle. They're not about the go go go. And I think food is a great way to do it because if you can cook slow, you can eat slower. Um, and I'm a very big proponent of how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you take your time with the food, you'll be able to take your time eating, take your time with someone who may be struggling, take your time with being a leader and teaching someone how to cut an onion. Um, I think it all kind of correlates.
Yeah, that's so true. And I've heard that before about, even like if you're eating food and you're just thinking about how nutritious the food is, even if you're eating food that's not nutritious, but you have the mindset that it is nutritious, you're going to get more out of it just based on your
Yeah,
thoughts on the food too. And I heard the other day too that if you're eating around someone that you don't like, then your body's gonna, I don't know exactly what it does, but it's like you said, like if you're eating around people that you love and you're relaxed to be around, then that's a huge thing too. And that's interesting what you said about Europe too, because like it's true, everyone drinks wine over there, but they're relaxed when they're drinking it. Whereas I think in North America, people are drinking because they're stressed, and
yeah.
a lot of people don't have that relaxed. That
It's just
relaxed.
it's an escape cure, whereas over there it's just ingrained into society, but in a proper way, not in a like escapist way. But I mean, who knows? I can't really speak for everyone
Yeah, true.
in
Yeah,
that regard. And there are problems over there too, but it's not. I just find it's a very different lifestyle, um, and I try to just live that lifestyle. I guess really.
I need.
I think the stress is the biggest trigger, and I think we put a lot of stresses on ourselves. And I think trying to get to the table with food and friends and family and put those things aside and just enjoy each other's company and be grateful that you're all there is probably the hardest thing for us to do in this society, I think.
I love that. I think I definitely could need to work on that a little bit. Slowing down and enjoying food with family and friends. That's something that I could definitely use a little bit more of in my life. We always try to eat together as a family. It's stressful because we eat, and then my one daughter, my kids will take one bite and then they're running around the house and
Yeah,
they're all over the place, or one's yelling because she doesn't like this or doesn't like that. But I think getting together with family and friends is really important. And when you were talking about that, it reminded me of all the years I worked in a kitchen when I never really ate, and if I did eat, I was just stuffing like a chicken finger down my throat in the middle of the afternoon. So I don't think I have a lot of times in my life where I actually sat down and ate around the table like that, because when I was a chef, I was never home, and you're always so busy at work that we never really
yeah,
took the time to sit down and eat. So yeah, that's
yeah.
something that I with.
I was very fortunate in a few cases where we had staff meal. It was kind of planned into the day and planned into the routine, um, and it's a great thing to be able to just sit and talk with people and not worry about work. But it's hard to also get there because you're also like in London. We were 300 people a day, and there was a team of 50 people trying to feed them at a la carte 2 Michelin star level. So it wasn't even like a tasting menu where you knew you're cooking only these 8 dishes. It was you don't know what anyone is ordering, and you got to make sure you have it ready for 300 people at that type of level. So it was tough and challenging, but I definitely realized those moments where I stress ate, I had a poor service and poor poor work ethic. But it was, I don't know, it's hard because you got to it's the balance of grinding and not doing anything is important, and like that rest stage is natural for us to want rest after stress. So continuing
Um,
to pile things on is not sustainable and burning
yeah,
out.
absolutely. Totally agree. And do you want to speak a little bit about your cooking philosophy and what your food program is all about at Rosewood?
Yeah, so we are we're a smaller operation. We don't even serve dinner. Um, our menu is usually like what you'd expect at a wine bar, so like smaller snacks, charcuterie, cheese. Um, but then we also offer a estate lunch where we source all of our ingredients locally. I believe 85% of our menu is from within 300 kilometers of the estate and north of the border. So we've been elbows up before the politicians and media told us to be. So we've been, luckily enough, I've found a few farmers who have regenerative farms who also have pigs to like help clean up their waste and also like forage through forests and all that. So we've been able to get in a few of those. We keep taking any step we can to make all of our food from scratch and fresh on the week. We were installing about a 1/5 of an acre garden behind the house here. We'll be growing our own food, berries, herbs, and just trying to reduce our reliance on big food and agriculture, and just really connect and really show the sense of place, because that's what wine is about. Wine is about the terroir where it's grown, and that's what we're trying to do with our food. Of like, we really care for where this person is growing this food. We care for the person growing the food, so we don't want to do anything terrible by just bringing in some chicken fingers and putting on the plate with some locally grown carrots. No, we're going to highlight the carrot and that local cheese, and we're going to highlight that local honey that we produce here as well at Rosewood. So that's what we're about. We're about kind of evoking a story and evoking sense of place on the plate as well as in the glass.
That's beautiful, man. Incredible. I need to get out there and check it out one day.
Yeah, definitely you should.
For sure. Awesome, man. Well, before we wrap things up, we're coming near the end of our time here, Chef. Do you have any
Well,
final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners? Is there anything we didn't cover today that you'd like to add?
I don't really think so. Sorry, I'm sorry. If you forgot, I'm sorry. I think we actually had a great talk. I mean, I'm probably one of those guys that an hour later I'll have something to like, oh, I wish I said that. But um, I don't know. I was very appreciative of the chance we had to chat, and maybe look forward to doing another one day when we're growing on in a year later or something like that. And I don't really have much, and thank you for having me on. And uh, should have a barbecue with the kids one day.
Yeah. Yeah, we should for
Mm.
sure. That sounds amazing. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you, Chef?
I'm on Instagram, but not very rarely. I kind of post and ghost, as they say, or like I'll just check a few things and then delete it off my phone. And then I make my app store unfindable on my phone, so I actually have to search it as well because I find I've kind of done too much of the flipping. Um, but it's at Chef Peter Pietruniak, I'm pretty sure. Or you can also just follow Rosewood Winery. They link a lot of my stuff on there. I honestly don't even know my handle as well. I think it is at Chef Peter Pietruniak. And that's about it. That's the only place I'm really found, and I check it once a week. So
Awesome, man. Yeah, we'll put your Instagram in the show notes below. And yeah, for everyone listening, go check out Chef Peter at Rosewood Winery in Beamsville.
the best
Yeah,
way to actually get us is is through Talk, TOCK.com. We have bookings there where you can book your estate lunch, where we serve 4 wines with all of the food that we serve in the kitchen with what's seasonal and what's local. It's a rotating menu, and it's kind of like a surprise. And we just like to make our guests feel welcome and happy and well fed.
amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chef.
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it. Love the incredible work you're doing, man. Keep up the great
Cheers,
work,
thank
bro.
you. And I'm very happy to see what you've been doing, and proud you took that step.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Beautiful. All right. And for everyone listening, we'll include Peter's information in the show notes below. And as always, if you'd like to connect with me, you can follow me on Instagram at transformative_pathways and also on TikTok at Jason_Dobie. You can also find my link tree in the show notes below. It has everything in one place, including my socials, my email list, and access to my private community, The Mindful Path with Jason Dobie. And just a reminder, if you haven't already checked it out, I recently released a free tool called the 5-Minute Stress Test, a simple way to pause and get honest about how stress is showing up for you mentally, physically, and emotionally. You'll get a personalized breakdown along with a few tools and an action plan to help you feel more grounded and in control. It only takes 5 minutes and is totally free, and you can find the link in the show notes below. And if today's episode sparks something in you and you're feeling called to explore your own inner growth on a deeper level, I invite you to check out The Journey Within. It's my 12-week coaching program designed to help you break free from stress, self-doubt, and feeling stuck so you can live with more confidence, clarity, and purpose. Just head over to jasondobie.com or click the link in the show notes for all the details. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love it if you could like, subscribe, and follow us on your favorite listening platform. And if you'd like to support the show, we would be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It would mean so much to us and also help the show reach more listeners. Again, thank you so much for being with us today, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
This has been the Transformative Pathways Podcast with your host, Jason Dobie. Tune in each week for more insights, inspiring stories, and transformative journeys. Until then, keep exploring the path to keep your best self. Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.